So we're at the Renwick in Washington, D.C. This is our Washington, D.C. Teen Design Fair. I've been part of the Teen Design Fair in New York for a long time, and it's wonderful to bring this to Washington and to make this fabulous investment in, frankly, the future of our society and culture.
So my design was about, these are the two houses, bringing them together and stitching it together.
We're talking to teenagers about design and design careers and life and everything else.
Thank you for coming. I'm so excited. This is so nice to be here. I've never done this before, and it's really exciting for me.
What was this for?
This is, when you walk in, it's this almost triple height space to the Yves Saint Laurent store.
What I love about design education is that the answer isn't in the back of the book. And for most of these students, that makes the study of design a very, very unique experience.
So we look at the existing shoes and we find out from consumers what do they like from a performance perspective and make sure that the new shoe is better than the old shoe, fits better, more comfortable, etc. Great question. These are great questions, guys.
These kids also are really passionate about the art, but they don't know necessarily what career possibilities there are for them.
I want to go to design school, really. I do. I think I need the full experience as well, and I need the academics to be able to keep me happy.
I think that it will really inform your design work to have done it, even if it gets you off to a slower start in your career category.
So without giving young people inspiration, encouragement, without nurturing them and cultivating them, we won't have a future.
It's not just about what you do, it's about what the people around you do, and also how good are you at getting stuff out of them, like making sure that they feel like they can contribute and that they're interested, and that's really important. It's super important. It's not just about what you do, it's about how you get stuff out of others, and that's, in the end, it makes it better if you let everyone contribute and if everyone's feeling like they've really had a voice, it just makes a better product in the end.
Well, how cool is this? So my name is Yves Bruneau, and I'm the Deputy Social Secretary at the White House, and we are thrilled to have Cooper-Hewitt and the National Design Awards here, and we're thrilled to have all of you students here today, which is actually, we all think, the coolest thing. I mean, the First Lady thinks it's the coolest thing. We are all amazed, because how amazing is it when you get to look out and you guys are getting to actually sit and talk to the best of the best in design in this country, around the world. So I'm going to be very brief, because these two people who are getting ready to come up, I can't really, that's why I'm going first. I cannot follow this act. But, my one thing to all of you, all the students, first and foremost, is don't be frightened. Take every opportunity to ask every single question that you think you might want to know the answer to. I mean, you have an opportunity that so few people get, and that's one of the great things about today. And when we did this, we did something totally different, but last year we paired designers up, and they went out and they fanned across the city at Smithsonian institutions, and they had dialogue, and there were, people from the community got to ask questions, and that was a great start. But this is totally taking that to an entirely different level. And so, as the First Lady always says when she's mentoring students, this is a really amazing opportunity. So don't be shy. Ask your questions, get to know people, make amazing connections, stay in touch with people, and have a great time. And thank you guys for being here.
Hi, I'm Caroline Payson. I'm the Director of Education at Cooper-Hewitt, and it is my pleasure to introduce Tim Gunn.
Thank you, everyone.
Tim Gunn, as I'm sure you all know, is on Project Runway. He is also the author of a new book coming out this fall, Gunn's Golden Rules. And he is also, you may not know, is a great friend of Cooper-Hewitt and a huge advocate of design education and education for young people, which is why he's here today. So the two of us are going to do a little Q&A with some questions that some of you may not have had a chance to ask him in person, and then we'll open it up and let you guys ask the questions. But before we do that, we have an all-important raffle to do.
Oh,
good. What you guys did when you filled out this evaluation was give us some suggestions to do this better the next time we do it, so we really appreciate that. And we have 5 Target gift certificates for the 5 lucky winners.
How exciting. How are we doing this?
you want me to pull and read?
Sure. I won't look. First is Julia Terry. Julia, congratulations. Congratulations.
There you go.
It's like the Academy Awards. Next we have, oh, people are going to think that I rigged this. Ryan, it's you. No, come up. Come, Ryan's very loyal to these events. Come up, and you're still a student.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That's very funny. Next we have Valerie DeNavo. Valerie, there she is. Congratulations.
Here you go.
All right. I take this very seriously. Maureen Nakasaka. Maureen, there she is. Congratulations.
There you go. Good, we needed a winner from that side of the room.
And our last winner is Carly Robertson. Carly? Carly, oh, there she is. Congratulations, Carly.
Thanks. Nice to meet you. So I think, Tim, a question that a lot of people have is, how did you get to where you are? One of the things we want to do today is to demonstrate that there are a lot of paths and that a lot of times it's not a straightforward one.
It wasn't for me, that's for certain. I have to say, I have a very serendipitous path in many, many ways. I spent most of my childhood dreaming of being an architect, but I had a lot of passions. I studied classical piano for 12 years. I still remember the day when I realized I wasn't going to be a child prodigy. It was devastating. And I was very serious about writing. And I ended up studying English literature. And I took an architecture course, and I hated it because I fast-forwarded and thought, I'm going to end up doing plumbing specs and wiring plans for gas stations, and it didn't appeal to me. And I had a kind of epiphany when I was studying literature. I was allowed to take a drawing course in my last semester of my senior year. And it was with a wonderful visiting artist by the name of Ann Truitt, who had a big retrospective at the Hirshhorn last fall. And the epiphany was the following. For the first time in my whole educational career, the answer wasn't in the back of the book. The answer was in me. And on the one hand, it was liberating. On the other hand, it was terrifying. And I thought, this is what I want to do. I really want to study art and design. And my parents had already invested a lot of money and a lot of education, and I prepared myself for how I was going to tell them that I wanted to do this. And my home is in Washington. I was studying in New England at that time. And I did not know that there was a school at the Corcoran. And I was doing my museum rounds, and I have to say, one of the things I love about the city is the richness of the resources. You all are so lucky to have this, and it's free on top of everything else. It's wonderful. And I was at the Corcoran, and there was a doorway that was open from the gallery into a part of the institution that I didn't know existed, which was the school. And there were young people there having this very intense conversation about, from what I could gather, about the turning point of Impressionism, and it was interesting to listen to them. So I picked up a brochure, this was during the summer, and thought, I want to take another drawing course, and I did. And to make this story shorter, I ended up studying for 4 years at the Corcoran. I studied sculpture, and the sculpture experience happened not by design. I resisted it. I thought, I'm a painter, I'm not a sculptor, I'm not a three-dimensional person. I don't want to take this course, please don't make me. And I had this great discovery. Some of the students I spoke to today, I said to them, be a sponge. Take everything that's presented to you and embrace it. And whatever you do it at 150%. So this course for me was a turning point. And I ended up doing three-dimensional work the rest of my time at the Corcoran. I left and graduated and had a sculpture studio that I shared with some classmates, and realized I couldn't make a living doing this. I was lucky if I sold one piece a year, and it certainly wasn't enough to sustain me, and my parents had been far too generous already. So I ended up building architectural models for 3 firms in Washington, and really loved doing it. And then a former teacher at the Corcoran, a former professor, came to me and asked me whether I wanted to teach a summer course to high school students. This was then almost 4 years after graduation, and I said I'd love to, and I loved the experience. And that was followed by, well, would you like to teach at the college level? And for me, that was not such a happy experience. In fact, I'll be very graphic about it. I threw up in the parking lot every day for the first week of classes. And I would have to brace myself against the back wall of the classroom when I was presenting whatever it was I was presenting that day, because if I were to have stepped away from the wall, I would have collapsed because my knees were shaking so badly. I had a tremendous fear. I have to add, too, that when I was studying earlier, I grew up with a terrible stutter. And it took years of therapy and tenacity on my part and wherewithal to get beyond that. And when I'm really tired, the stutter comes out even today. But I got beyond that when I was 19, 20. And it happened at the same time that I had this rich experience with Anne Truitt in her drawing course. So I, in some ways, associate that liberation of me with studying art and design. So I taught it at the Corcoran for 5 years, and I wore another hat as well. I was working in the admissions office, so I was working with young people who were applying to the school, who had portfolios. I went around the country to national portfolio days, and it was while doing that I met the people from Parsons School of Design. And in 1982, they called me and said, we would like to offer you an admissions position and a position teaching three-dimensional design, and would you be interested? And I said, no, thank you very much, but I'm really happy here and happy with my life and happy with my job and my entire career package. I was very content. And over the course of the next year, things for me changed dramatically. They changed professionally, they changed personally, and Parsons called again, and 2 weeks later I was living in New York. And it was another, upon reflection, remarkable threshold for me. New York's a very different city. People said, oh, it's just New York, it's just Washington, but it's bigger. No, it's really not. It's a completely different culture in many different ways, and it was not easy to adjust.
And just
you want me to speed it up?
No, actually. I was going to ask you to elaborate on something, because I think
Yes.
there's a question a lot of these kids have, is that you took what was a fine arts experience and translated it into a design experience.
Oh, indeed I did.
And maybe you could talk a little bit about how kids can do that, because you often have fine arts classes in school
Oh, yes.
rather than design classes, but also how would you maybe define some of that difference?
Well, I mean, for one thing, when you have a good quality studio experience, whether it's fine art or it's design, you should be able to translate that experience into, frankly, into most, if not all, aspects of your life. And one of the things I want to cite from my own experience as a student is quality and the notion that you only present work that is absolutely your best for that particular moment in time. It can only be the best, or it's insulting to you and disrespectful to you. It's insulting and disrespectful to the instructor, and it's insulting and disrespectful to your peers in the classroom. So it's only about the highest quality work, and that level of critical analysis and the discipline that's required to get it to that level still resonates with me today. It really does. Though I wish I proofread my email with a little more tenacity before sending. And there's another aspect, though. When you're practicing fine arts, and I'm speaking broadly now, but it's to give you a notion of what's at the core of this message. Well, actually, let me fast forward to Parsons. I was brand new. I needed to learn about all these design disciplines about which I didn't know, and there are many at Parsons. There are 13 disciplines. And I was meeting with the chair of the fashion design program, Frank Rizzo. It was 1983, and Frank was describing the process of creating fashion work. And I said, oh, I understand. It's just like creating a sculpture. I mean, really, they're no different. And I still remember the shaking finger. No, in fact, they really are different. Well, how? He said, think about it. As a fine artist, you're the audience for your work. You really only need to please yourself. I mean, again, we're speaking broadly. And you have as much freedom of time to create this as you want. Let's talk about fashion at that particular moment. You're not the client for the work, somebody else is. So you're solving someone else's problem. Fine artists solve their own problem. So you have to do enough investigation and research to really understand what the possibilities are. And the test of efficacy of the work is whether the client responds to it positively and whether people buy it. Furthermore, as soon as you finish that project, let's call it a fashion design collection, you have to turn on a dime and start designing all over again. You can't say, Hugh, that was a lot of work, I'm gonna go sit on a beach for a week. It's go, 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 go. So there are tremendous time constraints as well. So speaking about it broadly, fine arts, you're the audience for the work, design, someone else is. And I have to say, in my work at Parsons, I was there for 24 years, the respect that I developed for design got to the point where, to be perfectly blunt, and I hope I'm not denigrating any fine artists here, and I'll say that I'm one myself, I began to look at fine arts, or at fine artists practicing today, as being incredibly self-indulgent. When you think about what designers do and how they change the world and help people's lives be better, I mean, talk about a sacred trust, and I mean, who would want to turn their back on that? So, were I to do it all over again, there's no question that I would be studying design. No question at all. So, one of my messages about this, my serendipitous path, and I should add that I then became associate dean at Parsons, and in that capacity, some of you have heard me say this today, I was a Mr. Fix-It, or as I used to call myself, a pooper scooper, fixing issues in the school that were problems. And what led me to the fashion program was, the fashion program had a curriculum that hadn't changed in 50 years. There was a crisis in leadership, and we were on the cusp of going into the new millennium. So that program needed to be repositioned, and I was sent in for initially a year to do that, and it ended up being a much bigger task than that, and I spent the rest of my career at Parsons as chair of the Department of Fashion Design. But one of the messages that I want to give to all of the young people here today is, whatever you're presented with, really do it at 150%, and look for opportunities, and opportunities that are presented to you. Certainly evaluate them, whether it's a good opportunity for you or not, and if it is a good opportunity, fully embrace it. And something occurred to me when Caroline and I were talking to a colleague right outside a few minutes before this part of the program began. I believe from some of the questions I've received today, many of you think that there is this magical moment that occurs that's life transformational and career transformational, and it has some special sauce. It's a particular kind of potion. In fact, that's really not true. You need to be on a path. That path will have forks. You will then be making decisions about which way you go. And it doesn't mean that all of your decision making will be correct, but there are very few things that can't be undone as well. But just follow life's path. It's the only way you can do it. It's what I would say to my students about inspiration when I ask, why aren't you working? I'm waiting to get inspired. You're waiting to get inspired. I mean, a bolt of lightning isn't going to come rolling through this room and strike you. You need to take initiative here, and you need to find your own sources of inspiration and get to work, frankly. Anyway, my long-winded response.
No, and you touched on several of our other questions, so it went very well.
Good.
I think another question, then I'll turn it over because I know many of you have questions. If you're one of these kids and you do want to be a designer, you may not know what fields, but you love the process, you like the idea of problem solving in that way, what do you do? What are some suggestions for them?
Well, in your own schools, look at what coursework opportunities exist and take advantage of them. Summer school programs are another way of learning more. Read books about these fields. Read art history books and design history books. It's my constant message, be a sponge. Go out and explore these areas. I mean, I'm loath to say that you never have to leave your own house because you have all the depth of the internet, but do leave your house. Get out and find out more about it. I know that some of you are at a point where you're considering college plans, and a lot of parents are very shy and wary about conservatory-like programs like Parsons or the Corcoran or Rhode Island School of Design, or there are fabulous art and design schools all over the nation. Parents need to be much more inclined to think about traditional universities. The fact of the matter is, if you're an art and design major at a university, your experience will probably not be that different than it would be if you were at Parsons or RISD or wherever, because you're going to be going to class with people who are studying what you're studying. It's true there won't be a fraternity sorority scene and that kind of social life. Quite frankly, if you're serious about your work, you won't have time for that anyway. My students never have any time to do anything extra. I'll go into the studio on a Saturday afternoon and yell at them to all go to a movie. For goodness sake, get out of here. So there are just so many options and opportunities for you, but if you really want to be a designer, you really should go to a design school. It's very, very important. You're going to make relationships that you'll keep for life. It's so important to be in an environment where you begin to understand that the critique about your work is not personal. It's about the work. It's not about you. Yes, you created it, but we're talking about this work. And to be fully loaded and prepared for the demands and rigors of any of the design fields. They are incredibly difficult. There's not one about which you could even remotely say, oh, it's easy. They're not. And you really have to have an unbridled commitment and passion to what you're doing. Otherwise, don't do it at all. And in terms of choices of design fields, many design schools have a freshman year that's what they call non-disciplinary. I have difficulty with that word because it just means it's not discipline specific, and you would then go into a discipline in the second year. Not all, but enough to be important. But when a student would say to me, a freshman student at Parsons would come to me as chair of fashion design and say, I'm conflicted. I don't know whether I should be a product designer or a fashion designer. What do you think? Without hesitating, I'd say, be a product designer. Because if you're even remotely conflicted about whether you want to do fashion, don't do it.
Why don't we turn it over to the
Love to.
To see if any of you have questions. I'm sure you do. Don't be shy.
Yes, Michael.
And if you could stand up and say your name.
Hi, Tim. My name is Michael, and you told us a little bit about your journey. and you're obviously a style icon right now. But
Oops, sorry, that caused me to burst out uncontrollably.
my question is, there's obviously a lot of competition out there. Did you ever have doubts about your talent in the fashion world and coming into there? Because there's so many people with incredible talent, and did you ever feel like you didn't belong there? Or
Well, remember, I'm not a fashion designer. I'm a
right.
fashion educator. But I will add about confidence. When I was approached by Abrams Publishers to write a book, I thought, oh good, this is fantastic because I'm chair of this big department at Parsons. I'm thinking publish or perish. This is a good opportunity for me, and I thought I want to write. I went to Abrams saying I really want to write a fashion history book, and they looked at me and they said, no, that's not what we're interested in. We're really interested in a book in our self-help category, and I'm thinking self-help, and specifically fashion makeovers. Fashion makeovers? That's not what I do. And I left the meeting feeling very disappointed and feeling, well, they're not getting a fashion makeover book out of me. I don't believe in them, I don't do them. So I went to my guru, who happens to be Diane von Furstenberg, and we were having lunch, and I thought, well, let me just ask her. So I told her about this opportunity, and she said, are you crazy? Why would you say no? Just do it. And I said, but it's not what I do. And she said, never lose your voice as an educator. It's what you are. That voice will guide you. So I thought, I don't know what she means, but I'll try it. So I went out and I bought every fashion makeover book that I could, and I thought, you know something? These books fundamentally, and I'm speaking broadly, but in my view, disrespect the reader. They're preaching to the reader. They're setting down these mandates. If you wear this, you'll look fabulous. Really? So I thought, I can't do this in my book. And my book ended up becoming about who you are and how you want to present yourself to the world, because you have zillions of choices. And I'm always talking about the semiotics of clothes. The clothes we wear send a message about how the world perceives us. So what do we want that message to be? I mean, ideally, from my point of view, it should really be about who we are. So how do we tap into that? And then once that is determined, and it's not an easy matter, then let's talk about silhouette and proportion and fit. But yes, I was filled with insecurities about not being able to be a Clinton Kelly or someone who says, you know, we're taking your wardrobe away and we're going to give you all these clothes. What does that do? I mean, I had a program for 2 years, for 2 seasons called Tim Gunn's Guide to Style, where we would work with women to help them improve their look. But first of all, it was not an intervention. These are women who called out and said, I need your help, please, I'm stuck in a fashion rut. And secondly, they were doing all the heavy lifting and they were doing all the decision making. And when people would ask me, well, don't you want to do a 6-month follow-up and see whether they fell back into their own ways? No, I don't. Why? Because quite frankly, I don't care. They know how to look their best. They know how to do it, so it's a choice they're making. If they're not doing it, they're not doing it. As long as each individual accepts responsibility for how they present themselves to the world, I don't care. Just accept responsibility. I mean, I'm always saying, don't criticize the person on the street who looks like a circus clown, because maybe they are. You have to find out. So my approach to this is a Socratic one. It's questions and answers. But yes, I still have insecurities. I worried about this suit today.
And I have secretly always wanted to be made over.
Hi.
Hey.
It's a budding fashion designer.
Hey everybody. My name is Sam. My question was, being a fashion educator and being in the industry, where would you recommend be the best places to look for scholarships and financial assistance?
Well, for financial assistance, check with the schools you're considering first. And go online and look at the resources that are available to students from certain geographic regions, certain backgrounds, certain areas of study, independent scholarships that are out there. And so your question is primarily financial, or is there another dimension to it, did you say? Was there another?
Schools.
Schools in general?
Design competitions.
Well, I hate to be an elitist about this, but what is design if not a fairly elite field, if not very elite? I'm a snob when it comes to education. And on the topic of fashion only, I will say this. There are fashion design schools and there are dressmaking schools. They all call themselves the same thing, but they're not. There's a big difference. A fashion design school is going to immerse you in a context that's societal, cultural, historic, and even economic and political. So it's much more than making a pretty dress. And those areas of study are critically important if you want to be a fashion designer. Because fashion, like all good design, comes out of a context. So investigate the possibilities. And I want to add this, though, going back to the fact that many of you are going to be going off to college soon. Keep in mind, you're not a bird in a nest waiting for someone to come with some little worms to feed you. You have to invest more in this education than the institution you're attending. I would say to my students at Parsons, you're responsible for 70% of this. We'll bring you the other 30. But it's really on your head to make this work, truly.
And most private art and design colleges do have financial aid departments. And as Tim said, the first thing you should do is talk to the schools you're interested in and see what how much of that is available to you.
And never think, I can't afford the school. Maybe you can't, but maybe you can. Follow that dream. Surely there are other questions.
More questions?
Are you all just nervous? Don't be. You can ask anything. Yes? Hi.
I'm Jordan. I'm only 9.
I know, and you made that. Not only are you only 9, you made that dress by hand.
Wow. I wanted to know what I can do now to get ready for Parsons.
You're a pro. Well, you should, owing to the fact that you're so far ahead in your fashion design development, look at the fashion magazines, go online, sources like style.com. I'm glad you're sitting with Banaz Sarafpour. She has a wealth of information for you. And when you're a little older, do some summer programs.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing you in the future.
Really? Not a single other question?
Really? Do you want to ask a question?
I will ask another question. When we talk about design and its place in the world, everyone kind of has a different definition of why design matters. Maybe as a closing, you could talk a little bit about why you think that design and an understanding of design is important and why it matters in the world right now.
Well, no matter where we are in time, if we look backwards or if we remain in the present, I'm always saying to people, think about it. You couldn't stand, well, you could stand up, but you really couldn't navigate the world without it. I mean, if you look at your clothes alone, I mean, everything has been designed from the thread to the textile to the button. Everything has been designed. The chair you're sitting on, the table you're at, the tablecloth, this rug, the stage, this incredible room and building, it's all been designed. The transportation that we take has been designed. And when I think about it today, I think of it as a rationalizing and organizing structure as well. How we navigate the internet. It's all about design. And what I love about the world of design today is its incredible diversity. There really is something for everyone out there. American design in particular used to be very didactic, and it was a narrowly defined aesthetic swath. It's not anymore, and it never will be, and it won't be because of you. The creative energy and talent that you bring to this, the fact that you want choices as consumers if you put on a completely different hat, it says that this will remain a very diverse world, and it needs you. It's always thriving for new creative thinking and innovative thinking. There's never enough of it. So it's very exciting. Remember, you are the future. You are. And it's a big, big responsibility, which is why all of these incredibly great leaders of their design fields are here with you today to share their knowledge, to inspire you, and to help invest in you. You're important to all of us. And I want to applaud you.
Before we close, there are some people we'd like to thank, and I think first of all, we'd like to thank all of the designers for coming and sharing their morning with you. Also, the staff of the Renwick and all of the folks who have helped us out at the Smithsonian and making up, we are a museum in New York, so for us to move one of our programs here is pretty significant, and we had a huge amount of help to do that, so we'd like to thank all of those people. We'd also like to thank the Parks and Recreation and the DC Public School System, particularly the Office of Community Relations, for helping us meet all you and to get you guys here. That's been fantastic. And then finally, we'd like to thank Target for making National Design Week and this event possible. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Target.